This is what I love about talking with news anchors and like people. I
I
would
don't
say that
know.
you are a celebrity. I don't know if
Well,
you
go
grant
on.
yourself that. You are a celebrity and you are beautiful. And you are
Oh,
talking about
thanks.
your hair being out of, man, what people would get to have that hair. That is such
I don't
nice
know.
hair.
Oh gosh. Well, you know what? If you look very closely, it's definitely I'm definitely due for a touch up. That's for darn sure. But I
I'm
really appreciate the kind words.
Well, I'm just glad that I'm so tall, no one can see the top of my head, and they can see that it's been thinning over the years. At 46,
Ding
it's still
ding
here,
ding.
but it's thinning, so no one can really see it. I can see everyone's
When
head.
you
So,
you can't see it from the front. I mean, you're good to go. Nobody would have any idea had you not announced that, Matt.
well, it doesn't matter if they know or not; they still can't see it, so it's okay.
You know what? Now that we've gotten into this discussion about hair and our perceived and sometimes real imperfections, that's what this episode of the Kerry Barrett Show is all about. And to people watching and listening, thank you for joining. I'm your host, obviously Kerry Barrett. If you haven't seen the guy who you are listening to before, you haven't been introduced or know him from social, Matt Drinkhahn, as in yes, get your drink on,
uh,
is a business coach. He is a devoted husband and father. He is the host of the Eternal Optimist podcast. And as it relates to our discussion about hair, a recovering perfectionist. I kind of think I am as well, although I still have that sort of like nasty internal dialogue that goes on all the time, like
yeah.
pretty
Oh
much
yeah.
24/7. Yeah?
Oh yeah. I
You
relate
have
to
it.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stand by on that for 1 second. Your business coaching stuff, before we jump into like talking points and therapeutic needs, tell me very quickly a little bit about what you do with businesses. And then we're going to bring these two elements together.
Great. Okay. So thank you, Carrie.
Yeah.
And yes, I'm an executive business coach, and I help recovering perfectionists to systematize their businesses so they can get a little bit more peace, a little bit more joy, and some of them want profit too. So I help them with profit. The
Yeah.
point is this: I'll give you an example. I just came from a coaching call a little while ago with
Okay.
a company that is a $25 million company, and we literally spent an hour working on their email inbox management, a system of organization, because there's a lot of leakage there in productivity. So we worked on that.
Yeah.
The call before that this morning, it came from working with one of the largest 401k department teams and financial advisors across the country and helping them to scale and systematize this throughout their advisor empire. So it's all over the place. And as far as the business coaching goes, we find out where there's inefficiency, we find out where there's room to grow and scale, and we lean into that and help create those systems. So that's what I do professionally.
And what you do for fun is all the other stuff that we talked about.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, I'd say that there's a lot more fun stuff than the professional, and actually, the professional is pretty darn fun too, because we've gotten to a place in business, thank God, where we've been in business for 10 years as a coach.
Yeah.
And after we got through the first few years of having to take any client we could, and working through to get to a level of scale, now we can be a little bit more selective. And now every client's an ideal client, so they're all fun. They're all really positive
Yeah.
people to work with. So yeah,
I was going to
just love
say,
that.
like when I was on your show, when I was on your Eternal Optimist podcast, I guess it was like a month ago or so now, as of this recording that we recorded, it was very clear to me at that time that you did have a lot of fun within like the professional side of yourself as well, which I'm sort of beginning to get there, but I'm not as far along in my business as you are. I've been in it for about 3 years. And so I'm still in that place where I'm like figuring out what the right clients are. But I do look at the way that you like your lived experience as a business owner and the things that you talk about that align with business and personal. And you're sort of like my North Star. I don't know if you knew that,
Awesome.
but you
Well, thank you
are.
for saying that. Thank you. And
Well,
humbly, I accept that as a compliment. And I would say that you can do it. You've got all
yeah,
of the tools. You've got everything you need. Just it takes a little bit of time and the
yeah,
repetitions. And I don't know if we talked about this when you were on my show, but it was the quantity plus the quality plus the
yeah,
frequency of your practice will get you where
yeah.
you want to go. So and you're well on your way, Carrie. I mean, you got the charisma, the energy, you got the network. It's now just get your reps in, and you'll be where you want to be.
Yeah.
So I
It
wish you the
is.
best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, one of the things that we talked about, and we're going to dive into here in just a second, is some of that like mindset stuff. So like the perfectionism stuff, and that gets in the way. I've now realized more than ever
Yeah.
before. Like I've always had this sort of internal personal dialogue, but I see now how there's really no separating the person and like the business. That sort of mindset stuff, or it has to be perfect, and I'm, imposter syndrome and all the other stuff that goes along with it. It seeps into every aspect of everything that I do. It's like
Yeah.
business, wife, mother. I mean, how do you? I have so many questions. And it sounds like you deal with some of the same stuff when you're talking
Yeah.
to like your clients. A lot of it is mindset, like overcoming these sort of perfectionist, being grateful, giving yourself grace. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess my first question here is, how do you cultivate that?
I'll give you a personal
Okay.
example and a professional example. Here's the personal example. My second daughter was born in 2016, and I was working virtually at home, meaning I was doing a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Zoom calls, coaching,
Yeah.
and I could hear her 3 rooms away in the house, like crying or screaming, or she's a little baby, right? And she was making all this sound. And I felt, wait a second, that my child is interrupting my Zoom call, my professional business coaching call. So
She's so rude.
I know, so rude that the child here at 2 months, 3 months, 8 months, a year old is making all this sound. So
Mhm.
the perfectionist me, I cannot allow that to happen when I'm on a professional coaching call. So I would yell at her name, Lucy. No, Lucy, quiet. Not that
Yeah.
she has any idea what that means. And
Yeah, I
I'm
was going to
sick.
say, I can't imagine that worked all that well.
Yeah, it did not work all that well. And I carried around when I started to realize what was happening. I didn't
Yeah.
realize it at first, Kerry. I started to realize what was happening is that I was training my daughter to be terrified of my voice.
Mm.
And I new parent, I didn't see that at the time. And I needed to get out of my own head with this perfect idea that you gotta be perfectly quiet. Everything's gotta be starting perfectly on time, perfectly professional. Get the summary of the notes of our coaching call out within a day. Everything has got to be perfectly aligned. And I struggled with this first with shame and with guilt for yelling at my
Mhm.
daughter, right? And where this comes out to working on the game, how do we solve it? I I didn't know how to solve it on my own.
Yeah.
So I joined a group called the Front Row Dads, and I got some support from a couple people in the group because I wanted to live in a yell-free home. And I know that the only way I could do that is, well, actually, just stop yelling. I didn't know how because I
Yeah.
was so trained on things got to be perfect. So I had to start to view this lens of perfection a little bit different. And I shifted the lens through help from my accountability partners. Here's the shift for those taking notes. For anyone who's
Hmm.
listening, here's the opportunity. It's to shift from anytime you think of it needs to be perfect, or anytime you use the word should.
Yeah.
Should is the biggest perfectionist word out there. Another
Yeah.
big perfectionist word is but. You have a lot of buts in the middle of your sentence, you might be a
Yeah.
perfectionist. You have a lot of shoulds in your sentence or in your inner dialogue, you might be really, really controlling of yourself and others. So
Hmm.
if you find yourself using those words or you identify as perfectionist, one way is to start to realize and see the shift from perfection to progress, to
Yeah.
see the shift from but to and, to
Hmm.
see the shift from should to it is. And when you make these shifts in your mind from perfection to progress, what starts to happen is that, you know what? I offer myself a little bit of grace, a little bit of patience, because I'm not looking for perfect, I'm looking for progress. I'm
Yeah.
not looking to live in a yell free home today. That would be perfection. I'm looking to whittle away until there's a yell free home. And that's
Hmm.
exactly what we did. And it took me a couple of years to get there, Carrie. And now I'm glad to say we live in a yellow free home. I didn't do
Hmm.
cold turkey. I didn't know how to stop right away. I didn't know how to stop looking at, we're scheduled from 1 o'clock to 1:45 to have a conversation. And if I show up at 1:01, I am just cursing myself. God forbid someone else shows up at 1:04. Then
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't believe they wasted all this time. I mean, it's such a judgmental place of self and others, this perfection place. And I want to coach people, myself, you, everyone that can, just to have some grace with yourself and patience, and to focus on progress over perfection.
A lot of times when people are thinking about making those sort of shifts, and I know that I fall victim to this, or I allow myself perhaps to fall victim to this, is it's very like black or white. I've either done it all the way and it's successful, or I haven't completely reached the finish line and I was a failure. So,
Yes.
like, to use your example, I raised my voice one time today for a period of 15 seconds. Well, now the whole day has gone to hell. But how do you move out of that sort of like binary thinking?
And so part of this is awareness, right?
Yeah.
So I am aware that if I do this and it's ruined my day is now ruined. I'm aware that's my mental capacity at this time,
Yeah.
right? So my next goal will become, every time that I do something that causes me to say, you know what, my day is shot, or the rest of my afternoon is ruined, I'm going to make a mental note of that. In fact, I might even carry a little notepad around with me. And every time that happens, I'm going to make a note, because I want to understand what's the trigger that causes that to happen, right? And
Mm-hmm.
number two, I want to understand, how long does it last? Because the key thing here, between looking at what your triggers are and how long it lasts, Kerry, the key thing is that I am very aware of it happening. If there's a 3-step approach, step one is awareness. What is it that we're aware of? I'm aware that when I yell at my kids, I feel like crap, and it's going to take me a while to recover from that. I'm also aware that I used to yell out loud at my daughter probably 5 or 6 times a day. Right. So over the
Yeah.
course of time, what is my objective, my goal? If I'm a business owner and I like to take this business-like intensity or focus to every problem I want to solve, I would like to, over time, take it from 5 yells a day to 3. Or I'd like to
Yeah.
take it from, if I ruin my day at 8 a.m. because of something I said or did, and I have a guilt or shame of myself for the rest of the day, then I want to take that recovery period and learn how to shorten it. Right.
Yeah.
Or if you really want to get to it, maybe we can solve and not live yell free in the front end. But before we get to that, I simply want to observe my own behavior and just see what's happening. So awareness is step one. So if I see that something happens, like a trigger happens, let's just say the trigger is someone is late for a meeting,
Mm-hmm.
or I didn't get the sales done that I wanted to get done in my business. Pick your trigger, whatever it is. Something causes you to feel in a way that might ruin your day or might cause you to be down. Okay. Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's first identify what that trigger is. All right. So let's pull that trigger and see what it is. Right. So get as clear as you
Okay.
can on what the trigger is. That's step one. All right. So you're aware of the trigger. Step two is, how often is that thing showing up? How often is it showing up? Right. So I'm aware of what it is. I'm aware of how often it shows up. Now, my objective is to live in a yell-free home, or my objective is to be able to recover quicker whenever I have these tough things that happen. So now that I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware it happens, and I'm aware how frequently it happens, now I might even start to track how long I'm in that bad place, right? Or how long
Okay.
I'm in that challenged place. Any of these are things that, if you're aware it's happening, that step one is awareness. Step two is, now let's develop the action plan. Step two, AAA. Step one, awareness. Step two is action.
Mm-hmm.
Let's develop the action plan around that
Okay.
specific metric and work on that metric. Right. So from a very tactical approach, if I know that I'm getting into a bad spot because I just got triggered because, for example, my Zoom, I click on to go to a meeting and it says, you got to load this. Oh, a new update. Great. Right. So I'm
Yeah.
3 minutes late to my own meeting with 25
Mm-hmm.
business owners that are there waiting for me. And in my own mind, I'm like cursing myself
Yeah.
because I didn't do this in time, and all this stuff's going on. I'm aware of this about me. Right. So I know that the way that I personally practice this, and for those of you who want some practical advice out there, here is the practical
Yeah.
advice. Here is my action plan of how, when I catch myself just losing it in the moment and really judging myself and being pissed off and talking all kinds of shit to myself, this is what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. In my pocket at all times, if you ever see me in person, you'll always see a large bulge in my pocket. Yes. What is that
Oh, giddy
bulge?
up.
It is. It is this. It's some type of little small squeeze ball, right? This is my
Okay.
Eternal Optimist ball. Sometimes it's a small
Uh-huh.
smiley face, but I keep a little squeeze ball in my left pocket. So when I catch myself starting to get triggered with one of the key emotions, one of the 5 core emotions, if I want to be able to let that flow through me and recover quickly, I do the following
Mm-hmm.
things. I pause, I
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge that I am in this state, that something just triggered me.
Okay.
I breathe, take a deep breath in
Uh-huh.
and deep breath out. And then I accept that I'm in this moment right now. It is what it is. I'm right here, and I'm going to choose what to do next. So PABA, P-A-B-A. I pause,
Uh-huh.
acknowledge, breathe, and accept. And that is how I regulate my breathing, which helps me to feel my emotion and be present with the emotion and able to recover quickly, rather than the perfectionist Matt used just to shove every emotion down to the side, just get back and stay focused, stay focused. No one can tell, stay focused. And then later
Mm-hmm.
I would just let myself have it. I would just be super pissed at me, and this inner
Yeah.
stress would keep building up. And that's where the perfection would get me. It was always build up inside me. And I was wound up so tight. I don't know if any of your
Mm-hmm.
listeners are recovering perfectionists or
Yeah.
overachievers, or people
Yeah.
that just want to go, 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 win, 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 or do, do, do,
Mm-hmm.
which I do a lot of do, do.
And I think
So,
sometimes that shows up. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but
yeah.
I think sometimes exactly what you're talking about shows up in them not willing to do the next thing, or like whatever that next step is or challenge, because they're not going to do it unless they can do it perfectly. So not only do they
Yes.
berate themselves and beat themselves up, and then also create all sorts of other issues, shoving emotions down, not being present, white knuckling it through the day, they ultimately
Yes.
don't get to the next step because, well, if I can't show up and whatever it is and do it absolutely perfect and not feel any self-doubt and know that I nailed it 100% every single time, well, screw it, I'm not doing it.
That's right. That's totally right.
Yeah.
And notice my lens in the story that I've shared. This pause, acknowledge, breathe, accept. This lens is started from this place of living in a yell-free home, or starting in a place
Yeah.
of my own emotion. There, it works equally as powerfully in business. It's after you
Mm-hmm.
pause and acknowledge that I can make a decision, I can take some action right now, or I'm stuck,
Yeah.
I'm fearing what I don't know what to do next, or fear of success, whatever your challenge is. When you go
Yeah.
through your self-regulation process, that pause, acknowledge, breathe, accept, you do that, what's the next thing that comes to mind? For me, it's been, I'm going to choose how to respond. I'm going to respond
Yeah.
calm, cool, collected. These are the thoughts that go through my head. If it's a business owner who's having trouble getting off the bench or taking action, then you might go through the process, and then the triggering thought that comes up next for you might be this question: what's the smallest, soonest step that I might take right now to make
Mhm.
some progress? What's the
Yeah.
smallest, soonest step I might take right now to make some progress? And, okay, so never but, always and, because that's a builder.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I might ask myself, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen if I just took that tiny step? Right? And so many times we have a fear of something that is so far fetched, and there's no real way it's ever going to happen. And that fear keeps
Like
us on the
we've
bench.
catastrophized the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I feel that I've got this big pimple on my nose, when we talked last, this didn't happen. But after we spoke on my show, I had a big speech in front of 100 people a couple days later.
And
And
you did you
I
get a big
developed
zit?
I got the first zit I've had in 15 years, Kerry. First 15 years I haven't had a zit. And I remember the last one
It's
too.
horseshit, isn't it?
I know, it's freaking crap. And I mean, I got this big pimple on my nose. I'm walking in to give this big speech. And here, maybe your audience will think this is humorous. I thought it was pretty funny. At the end of all of this, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to own it. My perfectionist
Yeah.
self is just going to own where we are right now. And I actually did a crowdsourcing exercise with the people at this event and said, hey, team, if you can't tell, I got a big nose. It looks red today. I'm not masking as Rudolph. This is just a zit. And what we're going to do right now to have some fun is we're going to name my zit. We actually crowdsourced a name for my zit. Glory was the name of
What
it.
was it?
Glory. We named it Glory,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
And that may sound crazy to the people out there that are listening right now. And you may be like, why am I listening to this? Well, here's why, team. Here's why.
No, I'm
Many
fascinated.
people's biggest fear is the fear of the opinion of others. And that is what keeps them on the
Mm-hmm.
bench in business for so long. And
Yeah.
when you can learn to acknowledge that my greatest fear that I had this pimple on my nose, or the greatest fear that someone might actually find out I'm attempting to sell them something, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
my greatest fear can be realized that it's actually all in my head. It's all in
Yeah.
my head, right? So I want to bring that out. That's why I share the zit story, Carrie's, because if you can go and own a zit in front of everybody, you know what? You could own that you're going to ask someone to listen to you pitch what it is that you think can help them and help them in their life.
I actually, just as a side note, got a zit about 2 weeks ago in a wrinkle. And I was like, that is how
Oh,
life is bullshit. I mean, how is that possible? You're only supposed to have one or the other, and you're definitely not supposed to get a zit in a wrinkle. That's garbage. I
a,
didn't name it though. I
a
should
zit and a
have.
wrinkle. Yeah, well, it causes me to look at myself and just smile that I am so
Yeah.
with zits and wrinkles and my hair thinning on top and
And
my
my
legs are up.
hair.
I don't want to hear anything from you on that because your hair looks amazing right now. I don't want to hear anything. Your hair looks
Thanks.
great. No, but
It's in
the,
a ponytail. You can't see much, but I appreciate the effort. Thanks.
well, it's
But
challenging that
yeah,
we sometimes judge ourselves so viciously when we're really making much ado about nothing with a zit or
no,
with
I
some little tiny thing. So I would invite the listeners just to take a deep breath, go through the
mhm.
4-step process, the PABA, and realize that actually it's all going to be okay. A little patience and grace with yourself. It'll be okay.
I really do appreciate you saying that because it sounds very simple. Like on the surface, well, yeah, that makes sense, but it's actually like getting it not just in your head intellectually, but actually bringing it into the way that you operate in whatever facet of your life. Like that's where the challenge really arises. I think for a lot of people, we may intellectually know something, or we've read it somewhere and academically we understand it, but when it comes to living it, it's another thing entirely. And so that
Yes.
sort of brings me to my next question, which I'm hoping will poke some other holes in that trouble for moving from sort of one way of knowing it to the next, which is, did you experience, like, for example, you mentioned, the Zoom call, right? Zoom picks that opportunity to need to do an update, and now you're late for your own meeting and you're worried
Yeah.
everybody's going to, think you're an a-hole, or your daughter, Lucy, as you implement this no yelling household, now is in fact making noise when you're on calls with clients. Did any of that have any sort of negative or adverse effect for you with your potential clients or your prospects or just in your life? Or did people appreciate that you were an actual person dealing with the same shit that they're dealing with?
Yeah, I think that it was a big deal in my mind until I asked them.
Yeah.
I ask clients how they felt about
Yeah.
if my daughter ever showed up, and very few of them actually said anything remotely negative. They said, "Oh, I totally understand," right?
Yeah.
And I ask for feedback constantly, and that might be a superpower for some. It's like you'll be able to ask people for their opinion of you and how you're doing in
Mm-hmm.
business, or as a husband, or as a spouse, as a dad. Yeah, that could be tough too. But that feedback that others give us, it actually clarifies our own journey, and it actually validates us too, because most of the time they're going to say the opposite of what we were thinking. We were thinking that this was the biggest deal in the world, that I was a couple minutes late and they're going to fire
Yeah.
me. And in reality, no, they're not.
Yeah.
Most people will give
Yeah.
you some real human feedback that, yeah, maybe it was annoying, or maybe it was off-putting a little bit, but it's not the reason I hired you. So I feel that
Good.
asking for feedback has been a real guiding thing for me, and it's never been as intense as my own self-judgment. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a bridge. Carrie, it's worked for me. It's a bridge to overcome your own perfectionism, is to ask others for some feedback.
And
with their
have you
experience.
found that as you've started to give yourself a little more grace, or perhaps speak a little more kindly, even internally to yourself, that has then spread over to like interactions that you have with, maybe employees or partners, or like, do you
Yeah.
find that you give them a little bit more grace, and you have a little bit more kindness with them, and that influences like a better outcome or a better relationship, or just did the two crisscross?
I feel that way. I feel that way because
Yeah,
ever since I started to be a little more relaxed, a little bit less uptight about being perfect, I feel that that energy that comes out, the frequency by which our bodies vibrate, that energy is it's palpable. People can feel it. It's a little different now than it used to
yeah,
be. So yes, in ways that I cannot tangibly point to with ease, I
yeah,
can say at the same time yeah, people when I'm a little bit easier on myself, they're a little bit easier on themselves sometimes my presence too. So
yeah,
I feel that you and I think we have this in common is that when we
yeah.
go into rooms, I think that many times we might be the light or might be kind of the magnetic type of personality that maybe others kind of gravitate towards. And our energy can be
Mm-hmm.
that guiding energy in a room or in a
Yeah,
conversation, and people will feed from that. So my light is going to be brighter than most others' darkness, if that connects,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
I feel that
Yep.
they will feel that energy, and yes, there'll be less judgment in general in the room when we're present.
When we're present, and using that as influence. I want to ask
Yes.
you one other question before we jump. I know you've got a book coming up, and I want to talk a little bit about your live stream. But one question as it relates to this sort of removal or overcoming, recovering is the word we use at the beginning,
Yeah.
perfectionism. I think then once you've sort of accepted that that's something that you want to do or something that you struggle with, maybe the next fear that pops up for people is, okay, well, if I let this sort of like, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to white knuckle it through the day, like, am I going to lose my edge? Am I going to suddenly, fall behind? Or I mean, maybe lose your edge is the
Yeah,
best
that's a
way
great
of putting
question.
it.
Yeah.
How do you then maintain like the sort of discipline that is required to keep moving in the right direction while also bringing in this sort of like kinder, gentler self that you are creating?
Oh, I realize the word and. It's possible that both conditions can exist simultaneously. It's possible that
Yeah.
I can maintain what you might call an edge and I can be kind to myself at the same time. So Jim Rohn, the famed personal growth specialist expert, the guy that trained
Hmm.
Tony Robbins back in the day, Jim
Yeah.
Rohn said that don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills, wish for better skills. So the skill here, and you and I, as really good business professionals, we can figure this out. I mean, we're at the top of our game, and people like us, when we apply the same level of intensity and effort to solving the right question, the right challenge, then we'll be able to
Hmm.
solve it. The difference between those who get stuck and those who don't is those who get stuck in perfectionism see it can only be one way, right? Those who are able to overcome it see that it can be this way, and you can also be at the same time kind to yourself. So I would challenge
Yeah.
our listeners with a question. How might I stick to and live to and be the highest standards possible and be kind to myself at the same time? I'm not saying that's an easy question to answer and that you can answer
Right.
it in one sitting and live it all of a sudden out of nowhere. I am saying it's possible through the equation quantity plus quality
Yeah.
plus frequency of your practice equals your ability to overcome whatever challenge that you're trying to solve. My first book comes out on March 8th, 2024, and it's
Awesome.
The Eternal Optimist. And I'll tell you
Mhm.
more about the book when it does come out. And I can share with the listeners that you can simply go to my website, eternaloptimistpodcast.com, or come to any one of my social media accounts. I'm pretty easy to find. There's only 12 Drinkhahns, people that have my last name in the whole world. And I'm the only Matt. So look up Matt Drinkhahn, or just come to Eternal Optimist Podcast, and you'll be able to find all about the book. All about the book. It's a journey of learning over time how to overcome those biggest challenges in your life, and how one at a time I was able to overcome each of those. Perfectionism being one. There are a number of others that we've all been through. So yeah,
Yeah.
love to
So
see you
so
guys
it
there.
Absolutely. All of that stuff, listeners, is in the show notes. So check it out there. But it sounds like it's tactical and practical tips, also interwoven with your own experiences with each of those specific challenges. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. It's deep stories on the challenges, the
Yeah.
moment when we realized that what the challenge was, how we overcame it, and then tactics on how you can move forward from there. Yeah, that's it.
You really do live this eternal optimist. So when we first met and I was on your show, I didn't know you. We met through a mutual a colleague, and you really do, like, it's infused in everything you do, which is why one of the reasons, like, your live streams and your podcast are so amazing as well. So before we go, tell folks where they can find your podcast, where your live streams air. I know they're on Instagram, they may be elsewhere. Dive into that a little bit.
Go to Instagram, Eternal Optimist Podcast. That's my account. I do a live stream every day, Monday through Friday there, minus when I'm out of town.
Mm-hmm.
It's 7 a.m. Eastern. And I'll rant for 10 to
Okay.
20 minutes every day. It's a different subject every day. Monday through Friday it's a standard topic each day of the week, but it's a different call or different talk every day. And yeah, just show
Mm-hmm.
up, ask some questions, be a part of the crew, and yeah, we have a good time trying to digest stuff that's happening in the world, trying to learn together, how we might live this lifestyle of eternal optimism, where we can see the positive in things, and everything is an
Yeah.
opportunity to grow and to learn and to overcome. So love to see you guys and girls there. Also, follow me on Facebook. Same thing. I live stream on Facebook and Instagram every day.
Awesome. And then
Yeah.
if people are interested in learning a little bit more about business, Matt Drinkhahn, where should they go? Is it also Instagram, or should they check out your website or LinkedIn?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn's probably the best place.
Okay.
Again, there's 12 of us in the world with the last name, and there's only a couple of them on LinkedIn. So just look at Matt Drinkhahn, and we'll connect. When you connect, though, the way that you
Yes.
connect, please do not say, I will help you grow your revenue to X
Oh,
number by giving you LinkedIn leads. I get like
listen.
3 to 5 of those a day, man, every day. I love that people are aggressive and proactive. I just don't respond to those.
No. And by the way, I'm not responding to anybody unless they can promise me at least 150 qualified leads daily. So, there's that too.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Like, that's a big promise, my friend.
Yes, that's right.
Matt, as always, it is awesome to connect with you. Thank you so much for sharing, obviously, your time, but also your spirit and your experience with us as well. You're great.
Thank you, Kerry. It's been a real pleasure. So just God bless you. Thank you. And have a great day, team.
Likewise.